Okay, hi everybody. This is Christian SassePhoto on another very interesting analysis on the red-tailed hawk. We've been doing quite a lot of basic forensics and we've come to some interesting conclusions. I'm also very happy to have David Hancock with me, so I'll see you in just about a minute. Thanks for being there and just hang on, please. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another interesting session here at Saturday afternoon, which is unusual. I mean, usually broadcast on Fridays, but there have been so many events, and this last visit actually of David Hancock and myself to visit Terry and Kit and many of our friends down at the red-tailed hawk nest in Reading was absolutely incredible. So the events have now really turned in a very fast manner, and what I would like to suggest is I'm going to start the session, give you some background, start with the news, what we know, and then we work ourselves backwards. So hold back with your questions, please, until until we've done 10 or 15 minutes of some basic analysis. This is better also for replay players and others who watch. So I'll greet you later, please. So this is live on both YouTube and Facebook. So let's get straight to the point. So I have got a lot of news here from Terry Lewiller. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name correct. I still have a lot of issues pronouncing your name correctly. My fault. But we do know quite a lot what has happened. And she says that the last time she actually saw Tuffy, and that's what they call the red-tailed hawk, was on the 5th of July at 7 p.m. That was the last time, and then that was actually the night that where David and I traveled back to British Columbia. We did our last broadcast on Independence Day, which was the 4th of July. We traveled back on the 5th. So Terry who discovered the nest initially, also saw the red-tailed hawk right then, and then she went there one day later on the 6th of July at on Sunday the 6th of July at 5:30 p.m. and says he was no more in the nest, and also his cries were no more to be heard. So in the meantime, I didn't have my hard drive. I left that in California, which Kit in the meantime shipped to me, so that was very kind of her. And I had a closer look at my pictures, and these are images you have not seen before. I also got some incredible information from Terry looking at some of the feather structure. I'll show you two of those pictures, and then I'll call in David Hancock, and it's quite amazing actually. David has just yesterday been through an operation, which is quite amazing, a knee operation, and here he is. He's just come home, and he really wants to talk to you, which is really quite an honor. I can't believe how he does it, but I hope he's still on. Oh, I've actually lost him now, unfortunately. I seem to have lost him. Well, we'll try and get him back later. I'm not sure if I can do that, but I'll try. Sorry about that. I must have just lost him. But I was talking to him earlier about, we were debating until the last moments about what actually happened at the nest. Okay, so let's go. I don't know where David is at the moment. Oh, he's calling me through the phone. Just hang on 1 sec, please. Okay. Yeah. Hi, David. Okay, 1 sec. I'll get you back in. So hang on, please. Okay, 1 sec. Okay, 1 sec. I'll try and get David back in here. Just give me a second. Okay, hang on. I got David back in, but I have to get you back on the screen now. Just hang on a bit. Let's just do this quickly. Try and get David back in here. Let's see if we can get him. I'll get out of the way here. 1 second. There's David, and there's me, very tiny. There's David. I got him. Great. So David, Absolutely warm welcome to you. I just have to shrink you to get you so that we can see everything. So just give me a sec and try, if possible, not to go away.
Well, I don't know what I didn't do anything. It just the screen went blank.
Okay, no problem, no problem. We'll get it. I know it's not easy. So let's just let me just quickly organize my stuff here, and then we'll get going. Okay. So David, let's get straight to the point. First of all, wonderful you could join us. Thank you very much. I don't know how you endure the pain. I mean, briefly tell us, you know, what state you're actually in. I can't believe you're actually doing this now.
Well, yesterday I had my left knee replaced totally, and they let me out of the hospital about 3 hours ago. And so I'm home. I got on the bed, and then you call, and you're doing a program, and it's a program that's at my heart. So here I am. I'm lying on my bed, my knee just totally replaced yesterday, but a little earlier than this yesterday. So things happen quickly in the world today.
Well, David, thank you very much for being with us. I mean, you know, we've traveled a lot together, and this was quite an intense story. I mean, for myself, this was fairly emotional, actually, when I received my hard drive back and I started looking, you know, at the details of my picture. I think that's where it really sunk in to me when I was looking at Terry Lou Willer's pictures that she kindly sent to us, and also mine. It really sunk on, and it became quite clear that you know, there's no doubt in my mind now that Tuffy is dead. And the reason for saying that is that you know, at least the analysis we did, and we'll get into that in a moment, but also the reports that Terry has given, that she found the feathers directly in the vicinity, very close to the tree, and there was nothing else. And she made some further remarks which were quite telling. She said that when she discussed it with the Rusty biologist there, whom we also met, who's very competent, of course, it seems to indicate they also found some traces of bear there, that it seemed to bear scat. So it seemed rather obvious that it must have been a black bear. And what could have happened there, and we don't know that for sure, is maybe they also have great horned owls there, and we know that they hit eaglets at night. It could have fallen off one way or another. It could have been wind, and then a black bear found it and completely digested the red tail. That seems to be the most likely scenario that we have when we look at at Terry's reports. So I would like to go into that now, because I have on my other screen, I'm just going to show you that actually one of the feathers, and David, maybe you can comment, this is one of the feathers that Terry found.
Yeah, there's two feathers. This is, I've forgotten now. Mm-hmm. Whether you numbered this one 6 or 10.
Right.
Can you show the other one at the same?
Well, I can't show that at the same time, but let me just jump over quickly.
Click up to the other one.
Yeah, one sec. I'll do that quickly. Hang on.
Bird.
Let me just go. Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, we've done this under incredible pressure to get this all done. So let me just get back to my folder quickly. 1 second.
Okay.
Where was I now? Right on the top desktop. Where are my... Here we go. Okay, here we go. Here we are. So we had, I think what you're talking about is this one, right?
Yeah, this is the one that, well, both those feathers, but this is pretty close, likely to be the center tail feathers. It's not quite as squared off as one might have expected, but this is very much like the center tail feather of the one next to it. Called the deck. The center one is called the deck feather.
The deck feather.
And you can look at the base of that, not that one.
Okay, not that one. Okay, hang on. Let's.
The base of this center tail feather, and you can see it is the lowest part of the shaft is in what we would call the follicle, the part which is live and from which all the nutrients are in this follicle, and they grow out the feather. And this feather is still growing. It's still probably 3, 4, might be 5 days of growth left in it. So that would be, the bird would not likely fledge until that feather had grown out. And the same thing, this is a tail feather. There is also what I think would be number 2 primary feather, and the first one you showed, it's also in the follicle, and that's the way. No, not that one.
No, that one. Okay, the other one. Okay, I get
Yeah,
it.
the
Okay.
other feather.
Okay, 1 sec. I'll just try and jump back there. That was this one. Okay.
Yeah, and that's in the. So this feather is also growing, and for maybe 4 or 5 days from full growth. This is about what we thought when we looked at that bird the day we left. It might be 4 or 5 days of feather growth left. Well, here are the very feathers that Terry found and had the biologist say was red tail, and it was found right literally below the nest. This is really the same age bird as we saw in the nest. So it's pretty likely the tail feathers of the very bird we were looking at. And when you look at this feather shaft, the part that holds all the blood and the nutrients, that the feather right there, you can see this is a very fresh feather.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this hasn't dried out or anything yet. So it was only a couple of days old, 3 days maybe dead, 2 days dead when Terry found it. And that's precisely what this looks like. So it all ties together. She found the feather and it was fresh. And of course, it was only 2 or 3 2 days, I guess it was, since the bird fell out or got knocked out of the nest. That's something we can discuss. So it's pretty likely the feather of that beautiful little red-tailed hawk that we were photographing, or you were photographing, and you and Terry. So it's maybe a sad ending, but it's at least kind of a fairly conclusive ending. There's not likely a lot of young red tails of that age underneath an eagle's nest. There could be others. They could have pilfered other red tails from other nests, but this is so closely matched to the kind of the day that we last photographed our eagle, our hawklet there. That it's pretty likely it. Pretty likely.
Right. Before we go into the comparison, David, I'm just going to quickly show the viewers here who are not aware. I mean, this is a very simplified picture. For those of you who don't know, you have 10 primary feathers, 10 secondary feathers. It's just the basic flight structure.
And feathers are counted from where the secondaries join the primaries. So
right at
the
that
very
point.
outermost primary.
Mm-hmm.
The leading feather is actually number 10 in the hawks, like this.
Yes.
When you count backwards, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
all the way to
1
here.
becomes the first, just a little bit higher there.
Yeah.
No, higher up, the other way, higher up.
Oh, higher up. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, right there is the join where those two lines come in. That's pointing at number 1, and then you count out and you become number 10 at the outer lead edge, and then you start counting secondaries from the same place, and you count 1 going the other direction. Now,
yes.
Some hawks have 10, some have 12, some have, like, I think it was 22 in the Stellar Sea Eagle. Different hawks have different numbers of these different feathers, but each hawk species is consistent within itself. Anyway, this is a I think this was meant to be a kind of a generic hawk.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I just wanted to go from there to the next picture. Actually, that was the intention, because these are actually, I found this in literature. This is a juvenile red-tailed hawk, and this is exactly, so you would be counting, as you said, from right to left in this case, starting at number 1. Yeah.
The fat one on the right is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the smallest pointingest one is the leading feather, and that's number 10.
And you can clearly see how the leading feathers, as you go from right to left, of course, become more and more pointed for very good steering. Right.
Correct. And as they have on those leading 4 or 5 of them, they are able to tilt those independently a great deal, and either cause the wing to be able to stall out or not stall out is really normally the case. They can fly at a very slow speed by changing the angle of attack on those feathers as they hit the air. So this is a typical generic kind of format for the primary feathers. Now,
let's show the secondary quickly.
Red-tailed hawks, Christian, are one of the most variable species in terms of coloring. They go from
is that so?
Almost black to white, and they go mottled and brown and reddish, and so every red-tailed feather has a different kind of color patterning and color to it, and amount of pigmentation to make it either dark or light, or offsetting different bands. So you can really only get the feathers that look like from very closely related birds, because they change also with the molt. The juvenile feathers have a different pattern and a different coloration than do the second year and sometimes the third year. I mean, our eagles, bald eagles, they change feathers, look, and pattern totally for the first 5 years.
Right, David. Good. Okay, so these are the secondaries. Just to clarify, that's secondary red-tailed juvenile.
They're all quite similar.
Right.
They are just the big wing area, the lift area. They are not the part that has a lot of control for what we call feathering, changing the angle of attack. It's the lead feathers on the wing that have much more precision in how they are rotated inside that sheath, in the muscles that control the sheath, to attack the air and to enable the bird to either keep flying or stall out when it wants to stop. I mean, it literally is stalling out when it stops. So
I just see a quick question here from, I just caught it quickly from Stephanie on Facebook. She was just asking whether the downy part at the bottom, is that for keeping it warmth? Why does it look that way?
Yes, that's kind of what that is. That's the part right next to the body, and this prevents cold air getting in and intermingling with the bird's blood.
Right. Okay. Thanks. So let's move on to the next picture. This is just the tail feathers. Much broader, of course, for much more surface area. So
yes, and they're numbered the same way. In this case, from the center one is actually on the right, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left in this case, or in this case it would be right wing, right tail, and the other ones would go the same direction, the same basic shapes in the other direction. And they would, if they were up against the butt of the bird, or the bum of the bird where they're anchored, they of course would make a nice fan. They would, and that's why they're curved. They would go together to make a fan tail.
And David, maybe you could just explain the views, what the word criders means, or criders.
Criders. Usually said criders.
Okay.
This is simply one of the subspecies by some people and color morphs by other people. The red tail, as I mentioned to start with, is one of the most variable of all the hawks in terms of its coloration patterns, the density of pigmentation, meaning dark versus light patches. And the criders is a group, if I remember correctly, it nests along the British Columbia and Alaska highway, for several hundreds of miles, maybe 1,000 miles, 800 miles. And it winters, of course, in the southern states. And so lots of birders get to spot criders. And then there's completely the other way around. This is one of the lightest colored of the red-tailed hawk, but then there's also melanistic forms. Many intermediate forms, and some which feature the reddish brownness and so on. So a wonderful variety in the plumage of red-tailed hawks.
Very nice, David. Thank you. Okay, so let's jump to the next section now, which is just looking, and these are very detailed pictures that I've enlarged. I mean, you have to think we're sitting about 500-600 feet away from that, and that's enormous distance. And because of the high resolution cameras that both Jamie, by the way, this is a combined work of Jamie, who's had the D850, and I have the Z7, which have identical sensors of 46 megapixels, together with a 1000mm lens. It was possible to get incredible resolution here. And I'm going to enlarge this actually so that you can see the wing structure. By the way, those who have kindly donated will get 1 or 2 or even 3 of these pictures. I'm not selling these online. I don't do that. But if you want to donate something, you're very welcome. And I will send these pictures as thanks for you. These are the only pictures that really exist in this type of high resolution. So thanks for the donations. I've seen a few and you'll be receiving that. And the same goes for the Patreon people, of course. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in now. So this is a Tuffy. Taken probably, I think it was the 3rd of July or the 4th of July. I think it was the 3rd. But just as we zoom in, you can actually see the feather structure in great detail. And I think, David, we can't see it in such detail, but you were remarking about the tail feathers. I mean, is it enough to say with 100% certainty that this is the same bird?
Well, I would be reluctant to do that unless I spent quite a bit of time looking at these individual feathers and going through all your images and trying to find ones where we could compare them with each of the dead ones that were found. And so it's pretty hard to say that without really very careful comparison, but it sure looks like it. They're certainly the same age and they're the same general color patterns. It's not like this is a melanistic or a Kreider's red tail of the feathers or of this bird. This bird that you're looking at here has about the same basic density of melanin and so on, dark to white areas as does the feathers that are found below the nest. So it's pretty likely we're talking about this bird's feathers that were found below the nest.
Right. Okay. I'm just going to go on and show the pictures now one by one. Here's another beautiful one.
Yeah, that's a bit more from the top down.
Yeah, right.
The other one showed from the lighter side of the feathers of the bottoms, the underside, looking up. So this gives the difference in the feeling of darkness. But this is because you're looking at the top of all those dark parts of the feather.
And here's another one, just beautiful,
yeah, it really shows. It's quite possible, if you held that there, that we could match up that other feather as being, if you take that pointed one at the top up there, the outer one, that's number 10, then you go 9, 8, 7, 6. It's not sure which is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think number 1 is the one that's coming straight down, highly written. Let me just do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think the one that we see coming down, almost vertical and with the brightest light on it, the next one to the right is quite dull. That one is number 1 feather, and then number 2 is next to it, and that may be the feather that was in one of those images. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. And which side are we looking at it, from the top or the bottom? I mean, this is looking from the top, but what I can't remember now which side.
Well, here's another one. This is the beautiful
this is from the bottom. See, this is the same feathers, but photographed from the bottom.
Right. Yeah, I was sometimes I was floating in the air from the top. It was difficult to do all that, David.
It was tough tethering you to the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. Actually, I'm very happy we got these images because the window, we were very lucky. I'm very happy, of course, that Terry gave us, that Terry told us on time. But I think we're very lucky we came on time to take these incredible photographs, actually, because
we were. I mean, it's a very brief window that this bird lived in existence, and we managed to fit into that window, and we're very lucky. I mean, this bird is probably 33, 4, 5 days old.
That's right. So that's a good point. So if we calculate backwards. From what you've said, that it was probably 5 days away from fledging. We say the likely birth.
No, 5 days. 5. No. 5 days away from being fully hard pinned. They sometimes will spend another 4 or 5 days in the nest before they fledge.
Right.
Just like our eagles do. Our eagles will sometimes fully be fully hard pinned at 10 weeks of age, and then they will stay in the nest exercising for another 2 weeks to get that control on those feathers so they can go up and down and they can more coordinate their landing, because that first landing is life or death for most big raptors. They are either going to land on a nice perch, or they're going to get down through in the west coast here, the very, very thick canopy, and not be able to fly out again. So getting some practice is really important for a big, huge bald eagle. And so they have about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, to practice flying within the nest and branching, flying from one branch to the other in the nest tree before they make their first departure 100, 200 yards off to somewhere else. And I don't quite know the precise relationship between being hard pinned and a few days of practicing, but it's probably about a week, I'm guessing. A person who follows redtails would know this more precisely than I do.
Right. Just 2 quick comments here. So if you say it was maybe another 10 days from fledging, that would put our date. No.
Yeah. I think it's probably another 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days. Well, then
I'm sorry, from being hard pinned, and then maybe 10 days or so on, 12 days from fledging. You're right. You said it correctly. I was thinking.
Okay, then it's correct, because that's the analysis we also got from Terry, who estimated at the time when she first found the hawklet actually. She actually, I think, identified on the 11th of June, but on the 16th she writes it was about 3 weeks, which actually coincides with your estimate, David. So it probably was born somewhere around the 25th to 30th of May. If you calculate backwards, somewhere in that period, anyway. So
I'll take your word for the calculation.
Well, that's not a difficult calculation.
No, it is. You got a calendar.
I got a calendar. I just calculate backwards, but somewhere in that region, that would also. That's exactly the same what Terry was estimating when she found it 3 weeks. You go back, you come somewhere around the 25th of June, May. Sorry, somewhere around there. Anyway.
So that made the eaglets were probably already about 10 days to 2 weeks old as well, older. They were already hatched.
Right, and I can see some people are saying, how did it get there, and so on. We're going to get to that, all those interesting questions, because we're actually going to link this a little bit to the Sydney nest and our experience, and especially some of these statements that both Professor David Bird has, and also David Hancock, which I've got in front of me. So don't worry, we're going to get to the main questions. So I suggest we'll continue with the discussion first, and then if we haven't answered your question...
Can you deal with that? I'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, David needs to get up. It's amazing he actually gets up. So in any case, I just wanted to tell you, I'm reading your questions also on Facebook as they come in. We're going to deal with all these, okay? So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm going to show you some more pictures, because they're quite magnificent, actually. So again, I've seen that some donations have come in, and I will send you some pictures, because these are absolutely unique. And thank you for the donations. They all go to expand and continue with the channel. So very, very, very welcome. And if there's another way of donating, I think Osprey Mama's also online. You can also, if you're not on YouTube, you can also just go to PayPal SassePhoto. That's another way of donating. Any small donation is very welcome. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to go on with the pictures quickly. 1 second, I just have to get my laptop here. I've got so many computers open. So let me just continue now. We got these incredible, beautiful, and you can see the clarity of these images. These are enlarged from photos, and this is a very unique one too that you'll love, because it is actually the little hawklet that is. That's a wonderful picture. That really brought nearly tears to my eyes, I must say, because I got very attached to the little one. But you can see it doing this beautiful leap over its sibling. And let me just go to the next picture too, and just show you that one. There's one more that we have.
These are Christian. These are the same kinds of games. That, in this case, hawks and eaglets play.
Right.
That young kittens and cougars and lions and play with cubs. I mean, what it's all about is really learning how to coordinate foot and wings, because if you can't land, you can't take off properly, you can't live very many minutes in the wild. So this is all practicing of how to land and take off. Yeah.
Right, and David, you experienced like I did. Suddenly the gusts came in, and we were worried. Suddenly it got very windy, and that little one wasn't scared of anything, right?
No, I mean, in a sense, that enables the bird to refine some of those very movements, but
right.
At the same time, it has a very high risk, an extra mile or two of gust, and by golly, you didn't judge it right, and you're on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Being barefoot, yeah.
Well, exactly. Let me just see. I think there's one more here. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That's a great.
You can see how he's looking down and focusing on a stick where he's going to land, and that eaglet is thinking, "But don't land on me."
And I mean, this is just so marvelous, having had the privilege to have been there and experienced, the short time we were with it. It was just absolutely incredible, wasn't it? So
yeah.
So anyway, those are the wonderful pictures I have, plus many videos. I just wanted to, before, let's go a little bit into the discussion now. I'm just going to switch to my other screen. I also wanted to show you something from Lady Hawk quickly, because she has some beautiful examples here. Let me just see if I can get on the other screen. Yes, here we go. So she has, first of all, this is a great video from Miss Eagle Woman, who is, of course, Terry Loomwiller. And this was the very first video that she ever put on. And I think this comes from 16th or 17th. So do have a look at her channel. And this is really a very unique video, because you can see the size differences here, and you can see all three. That's the first video I found of hers on that page. So do have a look at that. What is also quite remarkable, Lady Hawk has given me some. She's got this incredible channel with an insane dedication. I'm also say ridiculously good. I just love to say ridiculously good and thorough coverage. But maybe, David, you can quickly comment here. I think that was E9's pin feathers, just really beautifully shown here, right?
Yeah, those are the pin feathers, just barely emerging, about an inch, probably a day and a half or maybe 2.5 days growth out of the sheath. The blue part is the sheath. That's the capsule which holds all the nutrients in the blood, which is the base from which the feathers actually grow. They emerge from that tube, and then when they're fully grown, it turns out that the bird begins to seal off access from its blood system to giving more nutrients into that sheath, seals it off, and it kind of sucks back into its own body, into the bird, the baby eaglet's body. It sucks back in all the rest of that nutrient and blood, and then seals off the feather. And from that moment that it's sealed off, the feather is then a dead structure. It's no longer growing, and it no longer has any blood or nerve endings in it that are alive. It's a dead entity. It's surrounded at its base, but by some skin and muscles that hold it in place and are able to rotate it and so on. But the feather itself is a dead structure, just like our hair is dead.
Okay, very good. Okay, anyway, so Lady Hawk's got these beautiful examples. There are two examples. I couldn't find the, I couldn't find the exact spot, but there's an. Oh my goodness me! Oh dear. Well, anyway, she's got these amazing videos. So. Tug of war guts, so good grief. Okay.
That might have been the tapeworm.
Tapeworm, yeah.
It might have been. I mean, that's the first time I've seen that. It might well have been a tapeworm from the gut cavity, but it it might have been a sinew of some kind, but it looked segmented like the gut of a tapeworm. However, I barely saw it. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, yeah, let's carry on. So anyway, so these are good examples of the pin feathers. So what I wanted to do next is I got these incredible notes actually from Professor Bird and from David that go back to July 2017. I dug them out because they're so informative, and that was also the about the. Of course, the Sydney nest, where we're so fortunate to be able to do the first live broadcast from there. But the point is, how did the question is, of course, how did the red-tailed hawklet get there? And at that time, I'm just David, I'm just going to read quickly. I'm going to actually show you something very interesting. This is the interview that I did with Miles Brown. Miles Brown was the first person. This is documentation from 2011 who went up, and if you want to see this, you can just find it on my channel, but it's quite remarkable. Here you see this little red tail beneath this huge eagle, and they didn't even know what it was. This is footage from May 2011. I interviewed him. It was an incredible interview, but I'm just going to show the footage whilst I go to Professor Bird's
so the point is, the big bird you're now looking at the top, the black one, is a bald eaglet, probably 9.5, 10, pushing 9.5 weeks old. And the other one underneath it, the tiny little gray thing, that's a little baby red-tailed hawklet.
Incredible footage, isn't it? Incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. So this is probably the closest and best footage that we have inside a nest ever. And so there he is, by the way. So
finish that story. Miles had climbed a tree and was lowering the eaglets down to be banded. And then he said, well, there's a runt in here as well, and I'll lower it down. Well, of course, when the just at the bottom of the tree saw it, they realized that it wasn't a runt eagle. It was an actual live baby red-tailed hawk. So it was a really an interesting documentation. I got the hiccups.
Okay, you have the hiccups. I'm going to give a quick thank you to Osprey Mama. I'm reading all your comments, so I'm going to get to that at the end. So keep on putting the questions. I'm reading everything. I'm just trying to keep keep everything a little bit more focused here. So we'll first go through that, and then we'll show the questions. But I just wanted to show you more of his footage. So in the meantime, let's go to the so-called nest raiding hypothesis. The emphasis again is on the word hypothesis, not theory. That's correct science. Hypothesis is a statement that is very likely and plausible, while the theory is something that is proven through facts and so on, then it becomes a theory. So we're talking about hypothesis. So we're talking about the so-called nest raiding hypothesis, meaning that it actually was never really documented. It's believed to be that way. So
no, correction.
Okay.
Many eagles have had their nest raided by other eagles, and it's filmed on camera. And we've had on our cameras eggs raided by other eagles. So the raiding is a theory. The question is, in the specific case in which you're discussing, is it a theory or is it true? And what has happened in all of the cases where we're examining these things, there are these facts that do exist and have been proven. The only thing is, which of them apply to this particular circumstance? Yeah,
that's a very, very good correction. It's completely valid. So again, the nest raiding has been observed, but the question is, has it applied to this particular case with the raid case? Thank you very much, David. Good point. So I'm going to read out Professor Bird's. Being highly opportunistic predators, one or both of the adult bald eagles raided a local red-tail's nest. They grabbed at least one nestling in their talons and transported it back to their nest to feed their own young. But something amazing transpired. The hawklet, not even realized the danger they were in, the hawklet in this case, began begging for food with open gapes and constant cheeping. Okay? And the two eaglets, in this case, in the nest were probably well fed and not really aware of what to do with live food in their nest, and they obviously ignored the begging hawks. The adult eagles were immediately conflicted. Do they kill the hawks to feed them to their young, or do they start placing morsels of food into their beaks? And here we must avoid the tendency to anthropomorphize the situation. The decision faced by the eagles was strictly hormonal based. There was no emotion involved. We know that in this particular instance, the hormonal urge to feeding begging young simply overrode any desire to the parent eagle to tear the hawklet apart and feed them to their young. David, any comment to that?
Well, that's basically how we first presented the thing. I think there's another slight twist more I've thought about this.
Okay.
And that twist is because having raised a great many thousands of birds and quite a few hundreds of different or raptors, there's another thing. Everybody who ever raises raptors are involved in analyzing how the parent, when it hatches one young, and now it has to feed it, and now the next day or 2 or 3 days, in the case of another one hatches. Well, feeding the first one often meant bringing in a baby crow or a heron or a fish and tearing the head off. And so, what's the difference between tearing the head off a raven than tearing the head off your next hatching chick? That's always the big challenge for raptor people. What is the mechanism that triggers nurture versus let's have dinner? And I think there's 2 parts. One is the begging call and sound that the young redtail make. It's very similar to the sounds that bald eagles make. But there's another potential thing that I've always felt was important. When raptors look down at their young, they see this big hooked beak. And that's a really big distinction. They don't normally feed hooked young, beaked young to their young. They raise hooked beaked young. Now, it doesn't mean they don't kill other raptors on occasion. They do. I mean, our Delta II nest, when I first met that nest, there was 2 eagles in it eating 2 large baby red-tailed hawks. That's when I got to see that nest. So they do eat other raptors, but generally when that nurturing item is triggered, it's, I think, partly the begging call, but it's also potentially this hooked beak.
So you're saying this couldn't happen with a crow? That's it. It looks too different.
The crow doesn't have a hooked beak, so off comes the head, and it goes down the gullet of the little hooked beak that's there waiting for it. Yeah, and I don't know what happened. I have lost all your images, but.
That's okay. I'm just showing these. At the moment, what they're seeing is just direct videos, very very detailed videos of the redding nest, and you can see the feeding of both the red-tailed hawk and the eagle. It's just beautiful pictures at the moment. Okay. I'm just running it in the background. But the other thing is the another term that Professor Bird used was non-lethal predation. So that is that they were brought to the nest and actually were not injured. Maybe you can comment a little bit on that too, David.
Well, that's pretty common. If you follow any of the live eagle nests, for example, where there's live cameras, streaming cameras in the nest, we see in this many times that one of the parent eagles will bring in a mouse, a vole, a baby duckling. I mean, anything from just hatched on up, and goslings. They bring in many things that are still totally alive. In fact, in all of these cases, we've seen examples where the prey, the vole or the duckling, has been left on the ledge, nest ledge, and before mother reaches over and picks it up, you can see that all of a sudden the little predator's head turns sideways, and he thinks, this is my moment, because the guy who caught me has let me go on the nest, and he goes running off the nest. And we've seen ducklings, goslings, we've seen mice and voles race across the top of the nest and dive off the end of
Isn't that incredible?
Their life. So that was obviously examples of non-lethally caught prey. It wasn't killed. It was brought to the nest still alive and able to make an escape.
Okay, David. What about the hypothesis now that wouldn't work for the Sydney nest, because we knew that there were two hawklets that were brought in, but isn't there a possibility that one of the eagles caught a female red-tailed hawk, and its dying moments laid an egg? What about that one?
Well, we know that that's not the case with the Sydney nest.
Correct.
Because
yes.
because they wouldn't have two eggs in the oviduct.
Right. What about the case here?
We do know that while we witnessed the Sydney nest from when there was one chick in it, just at the time the whole event was all over with, a lady came forward and showed us the picture she took the very day before the first photo we saw was taken. There was two chicks in the nest. So over that first night, one chick had died or never appeared again. So it's pretty likely they were brought in as potential food. Am I still on the thing?
Yes, you are very much on the thing. Go on.
My screen has gone
black.
black.
Never mind, you are fine. Go on.
I didn't know whether I was still there.
Yeah, you are.
So the point is, in the Sydney nest, we know that they had to be brought in live. They couldn't have been brought in as eggs because they wouldn't be they wouldn't have been different age. And the photo we saw, they were obviously, one was bigger than the other. So that's pretty likely conclusive that they were brought in as live prey. We do know of another example that was filmed locally here in Tsawwassen, or part of Vancouver, Greater Vancouver. In that case, the adult red-tail was caught defending its nest site, and the adult eagle carried the red-tail back to its nest, and it tore it apart in the nest, and parts were seen flying up and so on from the camera that was stationed on the ground. And then later on, the equivalency of like a month and a half later, when the egg would have hatched, all of a sudden a little head was seen over the edge of the nest. So that case is pretty conclusive that the red-tail adult female was caught. She was transported to the nest dead, probably, and when she was torn apart, she exuded, probably didn't quite properly lay it, but when the eagle got down to the oviduct, tore it apart, out rolled an egg.
That's incredible.
And in all likelihood, that eaglet, that red-tail egg, was rolled into a nest just as the other eagle eggs were hatching.
That's incredible.
Or just a day or so after they'd hatched. Then there's others where people have, just like Terry did, they come along at a point later in time, and they're at the beginning of their snapshot into this life, they see eaglets and a red tail. So you have to hypothesize as to how they got there. There's just very little likelihood in raptors that they're now the name escapes me, like the cuckoo, where they parasitism,
right?
Lay their eggs and let somebody else raise them. That's just not likely.
Okay, so we ruled that one out. We ruled parasitism.
I think that's basically ruled out here. Maybe it happened sometime in the past, but it doesn't seem to be currently a likelihood. Nobody has really, to my knowledge, observed that. And now I could be wrong, but I'm in the literature we've searched, we can't find that as a valid option.
Right. So I think that's also what Professor Bird said 2 years ago in the interview. Yeah. He said there's no confirmed case of parasitism with raptors, at least,
Right.
Whilst the other case where you say where you get one raptor raising another, or can be a subspecies or so, that's often done in rehab centers, right? They do such things.
Oh, well, what you get birds to do when you kind of force it or make that opportunity, that's totally different. I mean, you can get one species to raise another and raise three different species all at the same time. I mean, you get a cooperative, very broody female of whatever species, she'll raise kids of any kind for you. I mean, it's just some mothers are good mothers, and of course some don't raise any. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. I think we've covered a lot of details. So what I'm going to do now is first of all, I'm going to say thanks, David. If you want to stay online, you can, because I think there'll be a lot of questions coming in now. So I'm going to go over to just have a look and see what Osprey Mama has given me a lot of. Thanks for all the goodness me. Let me just open. I got so many things. First of all, thanks to all the donations. So that is Kathy. I can see here Kathy Harter, Terry Green. Thank you very much. Southwest, Michelle, Carrie Miller. And Terry just signed in on the chat. Hi, Terry. That is Terry Lewiller who just signed in. Very nice. Lady Hawk says, David, do you know how fast the pin feathers grow each day? They seem to grow, and how fast? That's a great question. So there you go.
Yeah, it is a great question. And to be honest, I can't tell you specifically. They grow very fast. You can see them grow from day to day. Some feathers, like in eaglets, they start about the 5th week, between the 5th and the 6th week, and they're in there by the 10th week. So they grow that huge, great, long, 14, 16-inch long shaft in 4 or 5 weeks. So that's pretty fast rate of growth. What the time is on a red tail, how much growth per millimeters, centimeters, inches, or whatever per day, I'm not sure. I'm sure other people have measured this. It's just that I don't know what it is. I'm sure people who... I know that. I mean, I've been on studies where we were measuring the feather growth of different species. Even though I've raised peregrine falcons from my breeding pairs and bald eagles, I've raised a couple of bald eagles from my breeding pair and other hawks species. I just never wanted to disturb them and handle them enough by measuring them. And I was always thankful they were alive and eating well the next day. But I mean, these birds get used to being handled, and so it's more in the mind of the handler than it is likely in the growth or lack thereof on the young hawk that you're measuring.
Yeah. Also, thank you very quickly. Wait, where were we? Oh yes. Westy the White donated. Thank you very much too. So for all those who have donated, and that also goes, by the way, for all the Patreon people, you will be receiving some beautiful images. The ones that are very close up. Those are probably the only ones that exist in this detail. Anyway, thanks also to my friend Jamie. We took both the work of taking these detailed images. So here's another question, David. 1 second. Oh yeah, that's an interesting one from SW here. Could it have lost feathers if it fell out of the nest to the ground?
Well, I mean, it could have knocked the odd feather out as it went down through the branches. But Terry had photographs of many feathers.
Many, yes.
Almost pieces torn out of the side of the bird. There was 50 or more feathers there. So this is not what would be all in one kind of pile. As the bird flopped down, it might lose 1 or 2 here, and then 20 feet over another one. That's not the pattern. What she discovered was the pattern of a bird that had been torn apart and shaken and eaten, and the feathers discarded and the body eaten. It was very, very effectively consumed by some ground predator.
Yeah, I'm just going to answer a quick question here because I know the answer to this one. Louis Grosset asked, what are they going to do with Tuffy's feathers? So this is by U.S. law. That's also what Terry told me. By U.S. law, you leave the feathers where they were. You don't collect them. So it's not like British Columbia, so we can actually do that. But in the U.S., that's strict law. So that answers that question. I'm going to see if I find more questions on Facebook. Just go on because I will definitely answer them. Here's one from friend Gentleman Ghost. Is there a history of chicks pushing siblings out of the nest? Could this have been the case? This hawk chick was pushed out of the nest, David.
Oh, certainly. I mean, we have seen this particularly when they get to that bigger jumping stage. One bird is semi-airborne or is airborne, and the other bird sticks its wing up to do the same and pushes the other bird to 3 inches off course and it's over the edge of the nest. I mean, this is not uncommon. It's been witnessed a number of times on the cameras, but it probably happens quite frequently, and particularly in outer windy areas, and
right.
where two birds are jumping in the nest at the same time, and one just accidentally hits the other. Yeah, that's pretty likely the case.
And David, you may remember with the Sydney nest, we had it quite. I mean, if you look at the documentation, you can actually see how once the red-tailed hawklet fledged, the eagles were trying to bully it out of the out of the nest, and it always made its way back. It was quite remarkable. So,
well, I mean, there seemed to be almost this conflict between the three big eagles.
That was incredible.
And the hawk. Like, what was this little intruder? I mean, why isn't he like us, kind of thing? And he would dart in and out, almost provoking an attack, because he was in grabbing food from them, and then it would be gone before they could kind of put their wits together. I mean, it made one wonder about how these bird species compete, because one was so much faster with its feet and so on than the other. But it may have been more perceived than driven, and by that I'm meaning the young hawk, the red-tail, may have had much more incentive to run and grab so he could get something rather than not get anything. And the eaglets knew they were going to get it anyway because they were big and dominant. But it was a very noticeable difference in the behavior between the little, very active red-tails and the bigger, more staid bald eagles. Yeah,
it's David and Goliath, right? It's
yeah.
Okay, and Laurie, I can answer that one here. Said she just I've just joined in. So did the bear get the red-tailed hawk? So the answer is very likely yes. From what we know from Terry again, what she's told us is that nothing was left. Typically, bears eat everything. And from the traces, what we see of black bears are very common in that area. So it's very likely black bears also like to, like to go at night around the nest, because very often fish and other things fall down. Also, Terry told me that black bears have been known even to climb osprey nests, for example. So
they've been photographed up eagle nests. So,
there you go, David. Okay.
Yeah. They're definite predators. I mean, they're more wary of like a osprey and an eagle, which would attack, than they would be. They would be scared of going up a red tail nest. There's not much harm a red tail is going to do to a big black bear. That's a common. It's a common worry for any tree nesting bird, is that some kind of ground predator, a raccoon to a bear, is going to climb the tree and get them. I mean, that's part of survival techniques, is being able to hide the nest or stick it far enough out on a limb, a thin limb, that a bigger predator won't go out that far. But when it's like an eagle's nest at the center of the tree cone, then it's kind of vulnerable, because the bear can go up the center and tear the nest apart. And they've been seen doing just that.
Right, yeah. and of course eagles need the stability. That's they have to be in the center of the nest, because
they don't know they don't have to be, and they're not always in the center of the tree, but they have to have some pretty big solid branches under them to hold maybe 300, 400, 500 pounds, or some cases a ton of a nest, as it grows bigger every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've just been looking on Facebook. I think I caught all your questions here. I'm just seeing I just see another donation by SW. By the way, for those of you who donated, thank you very much. Those beautiful images are going to come your way. And those who still want to donate, it's never too late. I don't sell this online anymore. I don't do that. But this is the only opportunity you'll have to get these beautiful images. And if you're watching this in replay, you can still donate with PayPal. That is just www.paypal.com/SassePhoto. It's the same thing, SASSE photo, and that's the PayPal. It's very kindly accepted, and as you know, I put all this money so that we can go traveling. I can join David on the next red-tailed hawk adventure that is coming from you somewhere. We don't know from where.
Yeah, that's right. If anybody does, this is a reminder to let us know. They can always go and post it also on HancockWildlife.org, which is our website where we have all the live cameras running. So they're welcome to put questions there and tell us of any other eagles raising things like red tails. They could be raising other creatures as well. It's not impossible they might raise an osprey, or other things like red-shouldered hawks, or even rough-legged hawks. I don't know of a record of it, but it's probably happened. It's just that nobody has reported it and been able to photograph it. So if you find it somewhere, let us know. We'll end up in your backyard.
Well, before you know it.
Yeah.
Here's a great question from one Babona. What was the age difference between the eagles and the little hawk? Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've twice now put it down on paper, and now each time I forget what it is. I think it was about the eaglets were about 10 days older than the red tail.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, something like that. But I've forgotten it now. You could just plot it, take that one day. I mean, take July the 5th, and work backwards. The eaglet, the hawklet was probably 35 to 8 days old, and the eaglets were about 7 weeks and 2 or 3 days. So you could just plot that on a calendar backwards from that date, and you'll see what the age difference is.
Right, and so the incubation period typically for red-tailed hawks is 28 to 35 days, I think, David, right?
Yeah, for some reason it's much more variable in
hawks. Yeah.
In hawks,
Yeah.
Eagles, it's pretty consistently 30 or 80. I'm sorry, 36 or 37. Yeah, 35 right. to 37 days, but usually 36 to 37 days. Much more precise with eagles than it seems to be with a smaller red tail even.
And then the nesting period, of course, is the period that we define from the moment it hatched to when it fledges is about, I read about 42 to 46 days for red tails, right? Somewhere around there, David?
It can even be earlier for red tails. Okay. Somewhere in the literature it says this 38 to 48 days, somewhere in there. Where the eagles, it's pretty precisely 83, 84 days. So, and, many birds, they hatch on the 14th day of incubation, or they hatch on the 24th or the 25th. It's very precise for some species. There's not often a day or two difference in there, but there certainly is with these bigger predators.
Right. I don't see any more questions from. Oh yeah, I just see something from my friend Mark Horney, just reminding you the other way to donate on PayPal is, and I will put I'll put the links below. So thank you, Mark. It's paypal.me/SassePhoto. I'll put all the links, and I'm also going to put a lot of links on the education side, where you can where we put in all the references that we have mentioned. There are lots of references in literature that David was referring to, and Professor Bird. I'm going to do that afterwards, so you'll have all the references there. So thank you very much to everyone. So I think, goodness me, David, I think you haven't done badly for just coming out of hospital.
Well, I'm glad to be home now. That's it. I'm glad to be home. Yeah.
David, I'm just going to put you on the big screen. I'm going to disappear myself for its own.
Oh dear.
There you are on the big screen now. So anyway, David, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, are you still in a lot of pain? It's just incredible.
Well, I was in almost no pain as I even left the hospital, and we had to stop and get a prescription. And I walked into the pharmacy, and all the way through one of these great barn pharmacies, and it wasn't until I went to come back out of the same pharmacy that I then began to feel, oh my God, there is pain in this knee. And by the time I got home, I just wanted to come and lie down and go to bed. The final sensation out of the center of my knee finally came to the front just as I was getting home.
Well, David, you're a phenomenon. What can I say? I mean, you're an example for everyone here. It's just incredible. I mean, that's my wish that I could be like that when I reach your age. Hopefully, I can, I can be a tenth of that. That would be fantastic.
We all wish we had your intellect and ability to.
Well, let's stop that conversation. No. We're not going down that road. No.
No. Well, David, we all do. Yeah.
Anyway, it's been wonderful. I just wanted to again, especially thank Terry Lou Willer for giving us the opportunity. Most of all, to that we were able to come all the way, for Kit for hosting us, for Jamie for hosting us there, which was incredible. I want to give lots of thanks to Osprey Mama, who puts incredibly much work into, in always following up with the channel. That's so much background work going on here. Also my friend Mark Horner, of course, who gives all the technical advice. I'd like to give thanks again to the DVE store who kindly sponsored everything there. So I'm going to put their link in too. Very nice, generous of the DVE store. And next time I go to the States, I'm sure they'll help again if there's an event to sponsor the live streaming. So that's been quite incredible. Thank you for all the people who've donated. Again, I'll just put the email quickly. I know that Osprey Mama has already shown you that, but that's the email, SassePhoto@gmail.com. Just give me a sign, and I certainly will, I will gladly send you some beautiful pictures. I can't wait to show them and send them. So they're very unique from the nest. Also, thank you to my friend Jamie Harvey for for being so kind and helping with a lot of the photos that I've taken whilst I was broadcasting. He was actually taking photos and so on. So there's a lot of teamwork going on, and especially, of course, to my friend David Hancock here, who has taken incredible energy to to be live today. So
no, I'm lying here on the bed now. I'm conserving my energy, not using it up.
Well, that's amazing. So anyway, so I'm just going to say, I'm just going to quickly come in myself now and just say, I'm overshadowed. I don't want to do that. Hang on. I'm just going to put in the background here a nice background. So I wanted to say thank you everyone for joining us on Saturday. I know it's many of you are out, but also for the replay players. If you have any suggestions or any interesting footage, send me a note, and it's going to be very welcome. Also to all people on Facebook, of course. I keep on posting more images, by the way, on Facebook. If you want to see more of the beautiful Alaskan eagles, I just wanted to say, give more photography. It's going to come up. I'm going to give these 1 or 2 minute wildlife photography tutorials, very short ones with very succinct hints of how to take good pictures, make them very sharp of wildlife, also do some beautiful image processing. I'm going to give out more of these tutorials on YouTube, so if you want to get just hit the notification button and you will get them in future. So I have a lot of interesting things coming up. We are now reaching mid-July, which means slowly all the eagles are disappearing, so there'll be a quiet period. That means I will have a lot of time. Also, Shia will be coming back with a lot of tutorials and interesting things, so lots of things to look forward to. Okay.
The birds will be coming back in October and November, and I'm going to be trapping and putting tags on a number more. So we'll look forward to that.
Okay, there you go. So David's going to be full speed again. Of course, what else do you expect? So that's marvelous. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone on Facebook and wish you and thank you for all the donations and taking actually the time and your interest here. So have a lovely weekend.
Bye-bye.